Alrighty, YouTube Niner Empire, what is going down? Welcome back to another video. So the 49ers might actually have some right tackle controversy. Colton McKivitz has struggled pretty much all season, and a lot of people are kind of pointing out that he struggled really badly, in particular against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It did seem like in that game, Colton McKivitz was being targeted by the Jaguars pass rush. There were a lot of missed blocks that McKivitz let up that led to Purdy having to scramble, to try to find the open receiver. It led to Purdy having to kind of force being out of the pocket and obviously scramble to make plays. And Purdy can do that, which is completely fine. But at the same time, Colton McKivitz has kind of had issues with that pretty much all season. So it leads me to my point. The 49ers might have some right tackle controversy. Obviously, when you look at Sunday, Trent Williams, I'm talking about, on basically one leg. I mean, Trent Williams going into that game was probably 70 to 75% healthy. Clearly, he wanted to be out there and play, and he even said that he missed being out there playing as well. So thank God we had Trent Williams because we got our physicality back. It seemed like, when it came to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously having Debo back as well, that helps the physicality on this 49ers team. But either way, to put things in perspective, Trent Williams basically being on one leg in Sunday's win over Jacksonville had 4 missed blocks and a single holding penalty. Colton McKivitz, fully healthy, missed the same number of blocks, and you could argue that Colton McKivitz's missed blocks were a little more egregious. There was also a play in particular where he missed a block, and it looked almost exactly like the hit Brock Purdy took in the NFC Championship game. And if you guys watched the game, I'm sure you probably know what I'm talking about. But either way, Colton McKivitz was actually rolled up on during the game. And he's going to be day-to-day with an ankle injury. So right now would be a perfect time for the 49ers to kind of look at their options at right tackle and determine if, obviously, Colton McKivitz should play on a bum ankle or if they should go in the direction of starting somebody else at right tackle. And here's the thing. In my opinion, when you look at the 49ers tackle depth chart, you clearly have Trent Williams as the number one option at your left tackle position. Rightfully so. He's the best offensive lineman in football. And then when you look at the guys below Trent Williams, if you had to put somebody below Trent Williams, it has to be Jalen Moore. I think Jalen Moore's been, he's been a productive player for the 49ers whenever Trent Williams was out due to injuries or due to his ankle injury. He stepped in and he actually surprised a lot of people, and he played very well. And then when you move to the right tackle position, clearly you have McKivitz as the number one right tackle. I think number 2, you probably have to put Matt Pryor there, just considering he's got more NFL experience than a guy like Jalen Moore. And then at 3, I would put Jalen Moore, at the right tackle position. Now, who do I think the 49ers should start if Colton McKivitz misses time, or if they just kind of bench Colton McKivitz and put somebody else in there to see how it works? I think the option would have to be Jalen Moore. I think you have to play him. Jalen Moore is probably more elusive than a guy like Matt Pryor. He's probably quicker than Matt Pryor in terms of that. And I think, again, going back to the Jacksonville game, Colton McKivitz flat out didn't acknowledge the defensive end on multiple plays. On 2 others, he was late to recognize a stunt. And I think what's most concerning about these struggles with Colton McKivitz is it's nothing new. Obviously, even in a game like Sunday's win over the Jaguars, it's not going to seem as though anything could go bad in a blowout win like that. But when you're winning like that, you also have to, kind of watch and I guess, determine how your offensive line... I mean, it goes for everybody, though. There's always just because you win by 31 points doesn't mean that you didn't do something wrong. Even Kyle Shanahan said after the game that the 49ers didn't play their best football, and I don't think they did either. There were a lot of situations and scenarios in which the 49ers could have made that game a little closer in terms of letting opportunities slip away from them. Obviously, that touchdown throw to Ayuk could have been easily picked off. It's funny, too, because after the game, Kyle Shanahan mentioned that was probably Brock Purdy's worst decision of his 49ers career. And I remember, like, when he threw the ball, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, you're rolling out to the left and you're throwing it to the middle of the field. Like, those cross-body throws like that are very dangerous throws, and there's only a small amount of quarterbacks in the NFL that can make those type of throws. And if your name's not Mahomes or a guy like, Josh Allen or somebody, you're probably not making those throws. And even then, this season, with Josh Allen throwing as many picks as Mac Jones leading the league in interceptions, you guys get the point. So you always have to kind of dissect and look at what they even in a blowout win, there's always things that teams struggle on. And for the 49ers on Sunday, it was pass protection. So when you look at Colton McKivitz on the season, he has a blown block percentage of 3.0. For context, the closest lineman to him is Jake Brindle at 2.3%. There's a sizable gap between McKivitz and everybody else, and there has been all season. So clearly Colton McKivitz has issues when it comes to pass protection. It also went over plenty of good play from the offensive line in general as well. But going back to the 49ers' depth at the tackle position, like I said, you have Matt Pryor probably at the number 2 option for the 49ers in terms of potentially Colton McKivitz being benched and who could step in for him. If it's me, I think the 49ers would probably start Matt Pryor. Just given his NFL game experience, I think that's the only thing that he holds over Jalen Moore. But I think with Jalen Moore, knowing what he showed while Trent Williams was out, I think that could be a safe play for the 49ers. And I think that they should play Jalen Moore in front of Colton McKivitz. And I think, obviously, Jalen Moore played good at left tackle. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play good at right tackle, but I definitely think that all in all, with Jalen Moore being able to play both at a pretty high level, I think you have to see what Jalen Moore has and can do at the right tackle position, no matter if he played well at the left tackle position when Trent Williams was out. I just think Jalen Moore is probably the second best tackle on the 49ers roster aside from Trent Williams. And the 49ers tackle position is pretty thin when it comes to after Trent Williams. Clearly nobody's even close to Trent Williams when it comes to the tackle position on the 49ers, but I definitely think a guy like Jalen Moore with his type of size and given how elusive and effective he is, I think he's probably the best option at right tackle for the 49ers. For one, if Colton McKivitz has to miss time or if the 49ers decide to switch some things up at the right tackle position. So I definitely think with Jalen Moore's athleticism and then obviously him performing well on limited appearances, I like the upside of Jalen Moore a little more. I would personally roll with him, like I said. I definitely think a change is necessary given, there's not really been any progress from Colton McKivitz. And when we get into the, late January or get into the playoffs in general, when we start to face these top-tier defensive linemen, I think you have to consider making a change at right tackle. And the thing is, you don't want to go into the playoffs and then just switch up your right tackle position. If I'm the 49ers, I'm probably making that decision within the next couple weeks, preferably this week, so that Jalen Moore can kind of get a feel for the right tackle position a little more. Again, he's coming off of playing left tackle while Trent Williams was out. But I think if you give Jalen Moore the nod to start, I think him getting that experience and him getting that in-game action at right tackle would only help him later on in the year if they decide to roll with him for the rest of the season as their starting right tackle. So, there's a controversy at the right tackle position. Just because the 49ers won by 31 doesn't mean that everybody was on their A game. Again, Kyle Shanahan reiterated during the post-game press conference that the 49ers didn't play their best game, and I don't think they did either. I even talked about, too, after that game, how I said that was probably the most dominant performance the 49ers have had all season. But I was thinking of the Giants game week 3 on Thursday night, or I believe it was week 2 or week 3. But the Thursday night game against the Giants, in which we dominated them, again, they didn't have Saquon that game. They were pretty banged up, and the Giants are a pretty bad team overall. But then you look at the Dallas Cowboys game, which I completely forgot about when we absolutely murdered the Cowboys. I definitely think the Cowboys game and this game against the Jaguars were the two most impressive wins. Now, I think beating Jacksonville on the road after a bye week, after losing 3 in a row, was probably more impressive than beating the Cowboys by 32 points. But at the same time, I think in a way the Jaguars were a more respectable opponent than the Cowboys were during the time in which we beat the Cowboys. Clearly, the Jaguars going into this game, you could argue that they were the hottest team in the NFL, and the 49ers just dismantled them. So, going on the road, obviously we played Dallas at home, but going on the road after a bye week to play on a 1 o'clock game, basically 10 a.m. for the Niners, and beating them in the manner we did was very, very impressive. So I still stand by, I think, the most impressive win the 49ers have had all season was the Jaguars. I mean, they are a very respectable opponent. Like I said, I think they're a more respectable opponent than the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm sure a lot of people probably think that out there. But, yeah, we'll see what happens with this tackle controversy. I mean, like I said, I think with Colton McKivitz not showing signs of progression, I think it's alarming. I think you kind of have to look at that. And like I said, just because we beat them by 31 points doesn't necessarily mean that everybody was on their A game, because I thought Colton McKivitz did struggle like a lot of other people out there. So if it's up to me, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, when you look at the depth chart, like I said, it goes Colton McKivitz, Matt Pryor, just because Matt Pryor has more NFL in-game experience, and then it's probably Jalen Moore. But I think you got to go with your upside here. I think Jalen Moore should get the nod at right tackle. Again, I'm not sure if the 49ers will even think about switching up the right tackle position. They definitely should, especially with Colton McKivitz probably not going to be 100% healthy going into this game against the Bucs. I think you got to look at your options. You got to weigh your options out. I think you go with the younger, more athletic guy in Jalen Moore, who's got the higher upside. But I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers rolled with Matt Pryor. Again, he's got more NFL in-game experience. But other than that, that's pretty much all he has on Jalen Moore. So let me know in the comment section down below who you guys think the 49ers should start at right tackle moving forward. Not only if Colton McKivitz misses time, but just if they decide to switch some things up, because it's an interesting topic to talk about. And like I said, when it comes to in terms of the tackle position on the 49ers roster, Trent Williams is the clear number one tackle that they have. But aside from him, we're pretty thin at tackle, and I think the next best option would be Jalen Moore, just due to his athleticism and his upside.